What up, everybody? Welcome to my channel, Big Bubba Blue. I've uh I've done some stuff like this before, but then I don't know, I didn't really keep going with it. I don't know, I've just done several things with this channel, but I've just decided to kind of go back to the football, especially college, because that's just my favorite sport, and that's what I want to turn this into. It just as a hobby, nothing special. I just really like doing predictions like everybody else, and I kind of hope this pans out. Maybe I could start something. Who knows? So might as well start off with Ohio State. It's one of the easier predictions I think for most people. But so this is what I'm gonna have for them. So I basically base off all my stuff off of analytics and talent ratings, and coach rankings and whatnot, which I've got on a separate file. But I don't really want to show all that because it's based off of other people's work, like Bill Connolly and 24/7. You can basically just look all that stuff up, so I don't think it's worth like showing it on the screen. But anyways, here we go. Here's my first prediction. Obviously, Ohio State. Last 3 years, I kind of look at that. I'm not going to be huge on the whole COVID year, just because I think it was different for everybody else, and I think if you had the best talent, you were going to win most of your games, unless you're Michigan. But anyways, let's get into it. Um, so for the 2021 season, Ohio State will start off at Minnesota and have a tough home game against Oregon. They got Tulsa and Akron. Then they go on the road at Rutgers. Home against Maryland. Then they go to Indiana. Home against Penn State. Then they go to Nebraska. Then they got two home game stretch of Purdue, Michigan State, and then they end off the season at Michigan per usual. I'm not going to show the schedule up on here because obviously I think you could just look it up and it's just, I don't know. I mean, maybe I'll eventually start adding the whole schedule on the screen, but for now, I just think it's easier just to say it. So the first game is at Minnesota. I believe if Michigan's team of last year could do it, I think Ohio State, just the talent is so much greater. And yes, they lost Justin Fields, but I mean, their wide receiver group is just too good, and I think they'll be able to take down the Gophers. Next would be the home game against Oregon. This is a game that everyone's like, oh my God, but I just think Ohio State again, too talented. If Oregon had their quarterback who transferred out still on the team, I believe that Oregon would have a chance, but it's in the horseshoe. I think Ohio State wins that game. Then next is Tulsa Akron. Those are two easy wins for them. I mean, if they lose, then that's one of the greatest upsets in the last 30 years or whatever. Next, they're on the road at Rutgers. I know Greg Schiano is had a good season last year, but Rutgers actually lost a lot of that team last year, and I just don't think he has enough recruiting classes under his belt for them to kind of regroup and kind of have a season that they had last year, like all the momentum. Um, yeah, and I think Ohio State wins this game. I mean, it's Rutgers. I still think it's Rutgers. I just, I don't know. I just do not see Greg Schiano pulling this off yet. Maybe in a couple years, but right now, no. Next, you got Mike Locksley in Maryland. Maryland looked pretty solid to me last year. I think Maryland's gonna have a decent season. Now, Mike Locksley is not considered a good coach, but he's got a lot of talent over there now, and I think maybe not this year, but the following year, you could kind of see Maryland. Maybe if Locksley gets his act together and actually decides to coach, he could probably get that team to 9 wins and maybe, beat a Michigan or Penn State, once every other year or whatever. But they're just not beating Ohio State. Like Ohio State's too damn talented. The only thing you really have to worry about, honestly, is if Ohio State's secondary could step up. But the talent gap between Ohio State and everybody else is so great that I don't think it really matters. I think if anything, it's going to be like the 2018 season, and they win like close games. All right, next is on the road to Indiana. Everybody's high on Indiana this year. Tom Allen coming off basically Indiana's best season in the last 30 years since what was it, 87 maybe. Let's see. Yeah, what was 87? They have Michael Penix returning. Uh, Everybody can kind of see this being an upset just because it's on the road and being Indiana, basically returning everybody from last season. But yet again, the talent gap is just too big, and Ohio State gets it done. So what are we at? They're 7-0 at this point in the season. Then they got Penn State coming home. I don't know. Everybody's high on Penn State this year too, and I just don't. I know they're returning a lot from last year, and they finished really well, but I just don't think Sean Clifford's good enough to come into the Horseshoe and win. And I think you could see Ohio State winning that as well. But I could also, I don't know, like that game. Like, does James Franklin actually? Nah, I'm just overthinking that game because it literally took James Franklin a block punt to beat Urban Meyer. So I mean, I don't know. Horseshoe, it's hard to win there. I'm just gonna stick with it. Again, Ohio State more talented. Yeah, Ohio State. Next they go on the road to Nebraska, and it's Scott Frost in Nebraska. Now, Nebraska was good, but Tennessee was good, Michigan was good, Miami was good, Florida State was good. Scott Frost, yes, he took an 0-12 UCF team to 12-0, but you have to understand 2 years, what was it, 3 years before that season, UCF also went 12-0 again, and what was it, the Orange Bowl? Or maybe they went 12-1 or whatever and went to the Orange Bowl, right? So I just don't get all the hype with Scott Frost. Even though he was a good college player, that doesn't mean it's going to translate into the Big Ten. And obviously, I think his best year was his first year when they had the last 6 games of going 4-2, and he hasn't shown anything since. And he doesn't have a quarterback, and I just think Ohio State goes in there and stops him. Yes, it's at Nebraska. It could be a night game, but look what happened last time they went there. The talent gap is just too wide. Ohio State is just that much better than everybody else. Just plain and simple. Next, you got home against Purdue. And yet again, I think the talent gap kicks over. Yeah, you could see maybe a close game. Yeah, Purdue beat them a couple years ago, but I mean that Purdue team's way different than this Purdue team. Yeah, Purdue's got a lot returning, but I just don't trust in Jeff Brom. Ohio State's winning this game. I mean, if they can win it again, then Purdue's the second best program in the Big Ten because they're the only team that can actually beat Ohio State. Next would be the home game against Michigan State. Mel Tucker. I don't know what to think of Mel Tucker, honestly, or this year's Michigan State team. Everybody's got him going like 2-10 and not winning anything, and it's just so tough because they lost a lot from last year's team, but then he hit the transfer portal really well. So I guess it all comes down to how good the quarterback's going to play. But I'm kind of on the boat of what everybody else is thinking, that Michigan State's not going to be very good this year. Now, maybe next year they could shoot it off into something and, maybe go 8-4 or whatever. I don't know. Maybe Mel Tucker gets enough talent, but this year it's just not the year, and Ohio State crushes Michigan State. Now we have the game, which honestly hasn't been the game. It's been the game one time since 2004, which was 2016. Other than that, Ohio State's basically stopped Michigan every time. Now, Michigan is basically on a downfall. Everybody's hating on Jim Harbaugh because it's Jim Harbaugh, whatever. I know it's at the big house, and honestly, everybody's picking Ohio State to win this game. But it's just, I mean, I don't know. Like, until Michigan can prove anything, like, I will probably never pick Michigan unless there's a 5-year gap where Michigan has 3 or more wins. How could you ever pick Michigan again? Michigan just doesn't want to win, and I don't understand why. And it sucks because I love this rivalry, and just growing up watching it, it sucked because I've always heard, parents talking about it being the best game year in and year out. But I mean, since Harbaugh's been there, he's been within a touchdown once, right? Other than that, it's just been blowouts. Except, I think, what was it, 2017? Michigan had a chance and then blew it or something. Can't remember. I only watched like half of that game. Anyways, Ohio State, until proven otherwise, even if Michigan does somehow pull off a miracle upset this year, the next year I'm still picking Ohio State because Michigan's only beaten them once or twice now. It would be twice since 2004, but I just don't see it. And Ohio State's going 12-0, 9-0 in the Big Ten. Only way Ohio State okay, I could see Ohio State losing. There's only 3 games on the schedule I can see them losing. I could see at Indiana because it's at Indiana, and Indiana's actually got a good team, but who knows if they'll be as good as last year if it was just some fluke COVID season or whatnot. I could see the Oregon game because Oregon's very talented, but I just don't think Mario Cristobal is a good enough coach to go into the horseshoe week 2 with a new quarterback and take down the Buckeyes. I mean, it would be a talent win, and it would have to be an Ohio State, struggling with their new quarterback. But I just do not see it. And then the biggest game I'm on right now is the week 1 at Minnesota. I know it's Minnesota. They're clearly not as talented. But the only thing I could see is if their new quarterback for Ohio State just does not want to show up and just can't play. But at the same time, I don't see Minnesota scoring, more than 3 touchdowns on Ohio State because Ohio State's secondary is going to not be as good as it has been. But, again, the talent gap, it's too wide. It's way too wide. So Ohio State, 12-0, 9-0 in the Big Ten. What are your thoughts? Please like, subscribe, and comment down below. Thank you.